What would you do if the man who humiliated you in front of the world suddenly knelt in front of hundreds and begged for your heart? From a forced marriage built on lies to a love that bloomed against all odds, this is a story of heartbreak, redemption, and a second chance you'll never forget. Stay until the end, because the twist will leave you breathless. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next chapter. Comment below and tell us, would you forgive someone who hurt you this deeply? And don't forget to share this video with your friends to spread the message of love, resilience, and hope. Morning traffic in downtown Chicago roared like a restless river, horns blaring and engines rumbling beneath the pale glow of streetlights. At 6:45 a.m., Lily Carter darted through the crowd on a rusty red bicycle, her ponytail whipping in the cold wind. In her front basket balanced a cardboard tray with 4 steaming cups of coffee, their lids trembling with every pothole she dodged. She was already late, again. Her sneakers slammed the pedals harder as she cut through the intersection, weaving between taxis and buses. She didn't see the sleek black Bentley pulling out from the curb until it was too late. Screech! Thud! The world jolted. Lily lurched forward, gripping the handlebars as the bike jerked sideways. The cardboard tray catapulted, and in a heartbeat, dark coffee splashed across a man's pristine, white suit jacket. Gasps erupted from the sidewalk. The Bentley's door swung open, and Ryan Westbrook stepped out, towering and razor-sharp in his expression. His icy blue eyes locked onto the spreading stain across his chest. Drops of coffee clung to his sleeve, rolling off like beads of glass. Lily's heart thudded against her ribs. Her legs trembled as she jumped off the bike, hands scrambling for napkins from her apron pocket. "Oh my God, sir, I'm so sorry," she stammered, blotting at the mess. "I'll pay for the cleaning. Ryan's voice sliced through her words, calm but edged like steel. "Do you think spilling coffee on me is some kind of strategy to get my attention?" Lily froze, the napkin crumpling in her fist. For a second, her mind went blank. Then anger flared hot in her chest. She straightened, chin lifted, though she barely reached his shoulder. "Are you serious? I'm just trying to do my job. Not everything in this city revolves around you, Mr. Fancy Suit." Traffic slowed. Pedestrians stopped to watch. A courier on a scooter whistled under his breath. The tension in the air was electric, crackling like a live wire. Ryan's gaze narrowed. His jaw flexed, as if he were amused and insulted at the same time. "Then next time, watch where you're going. My morning doesn't need to suffer because of your clumsiness." Lily felt her cheeks burn. Her fingers tightened on the handlebar. "Suffer? You can buy a new jacket with your pocket change. I could have lost a customer. Who's really worse off here?" Her voice rose, sharp enough to make a woman nearby gasp. Ryan tilted his head slightly, surprise flickering across his cold demeanor. Few people dared speak to him like that, but his expression hardened again, lips curling into that faint, mocking smile. "You'd better be more careful next time." He turned and strode back toward the Bentley, the crowd parting instinctively for him. The car door slammed, the engine growled, and in seconds, the luxury sedan vanished into the surge of traffic. Lily stood frozen in the middle of the crosswalk, the cardboard tray dangling from her hand, heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Her knees trembled, not just from the shock, but from pure fury. People were still staring, whispering, pointing. She yanked her bike upright, blinking back tears that burned more from frustration than fear. As she climbed back onto the seat, she muttered through gritted teeth, "Arrogant jerk, I don't care who you are." But as she pedaled away, weaving back into the rush of the city, her pulse refused to settle. The encounter replayed in her mind. His cutting words, that smirk, those eyes. She shook her head hard, focusing on the next delivery. Little did she know that split-second crash, coffee, anger, and sparks had just ignited a chain of events that would change her life forever. And somewhere, behind tinted Bentley windows, Ryan Westbrook adjusted his cuff, glancing once at the brown stain, a faint, unreadable smile tugging at his lips. The night air over downtown Chicago shimmered with neon and champagne dreams as black SUVs and limousines lined up outside the Grand Royal Hotel. Inside, the hospital's annual charity gala was in full swing, crystal chandeliers blazing, tuxedos and gowns gliding across polished marble floors. A live jazz band filled the hall with music, but Lily Carter felt completely out of place. She clutched an empty tray to her chest, standing in a shadowed corner near the catering station. The black dress she'd borrowed from her neighbor clung awkwardly to her frame, and her worn sneakers were hidden under the hem. But she didn't care how she looked. She was here for Evan. Every dollar raised tonight meant another day of treatment for her little brother. Servers swept past, laughter echoed across the hall, and Lily scanned the crowd for any sign of a donor she might persuade. She'd rehearsed her lines, ready to swallow her pride for Evan's sake. And then, chaos struck. A sudden gust from the propped open balcony door sent a ripple across the tablecloths. A tall candle toppled, its flame catching the edge of a linen napkin. In an instant, a corner of the table burst into sparks. Guests gasped, a woman shrieked, and servers froze, unsure what to do. Lily didn't think. She tossed her tray to the ground, sprinted forward, ripped off her jacket, and smothered the flame. The scent of burnt fabric stung her nose, but she pressed down harder until the last ember died. A few people clapped nervously. Others whispered in surprise. Panting, Lily pushed the charred napkin aside, and something glinted under the table. A gold ring, heavy and intricate, its surface engraved with an eagle crest. She reached down, picking it up carefully, turning it in her hand. Before she could even process it, a cane tapped the floor beside her. Walter Westbrook, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, loomed over her with a look of astonishment. His gaze fell on the ring in her palm, and a slow smile spread across his face. "The Westbrook family ring?" he announced loudly, his voice carrying over the crowd. "So this is how fate reveals itself." Lily blinked, confused. I just found it, sir." But Walter was already turning toward the center of the hall, his cane raised like a conductor summoning an orchestra. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed through the microphone a nearby MC quickly offered him. "Tonight, you not only witness generosity, but you also witness destiny. Allow me to present my grandson, Ryan Westbrook, and his fiancée." The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, a rising swell of applause. Camera flashes exploded like lightning. Lily's heart stopped. "Wait, no, this is a misunderstanding." She tried to step back, but hands gently guided her forward into the blinding spotlight. Across the room, Ryan Westbrook, tall, imposing in his tailored black suit, had just finished shaking hands with a line of investors. His head snapped up at the commotion. The moment his eyes met Lily's, his face darkened. He saw the ring in her hand, saw his grandfather's triumphant expression, and in that split second, Ryan understood the disaster unfolding. Lily's throat tightened as she saw him stride toward her. His steps were measured, but the fury in his eyes was unmistakable. She stammered, voice trembling, "I swear I didn't." Ryan stopped a foot away, leaning in so only she could hear. His whisper was sharp, almost a growl. "Keep quiet, unless you want to humiliate him in front of all these people." Her knees went weak. Around them, guests clapped and cheered, phones raised to capture every second. She could feel their eyes, the weight of their expectations pressing down like a physical force. Walter's voice boomed again. "Everyone, let us toast to Ryan and his beautiful bride-to-be." The crowd roared approval. Glasses clinked. Ryan's jaw clenched, and in that moment, he made a choice he would regret for months to come. He straightened, draped a possessive arm over Lily's shoulder, and faced the cameras with a thin, cold smile. Lily stood frozen, heart pounding, trapped in the flashbulbs and cheers. This couldn't be happening, but it was. Her fingers tightened around the ring, and for a brief second, she saw a flicker of something. Regret in Ryan's storm-blue eyes. But before she could speak, the applause swelled again, deafening, sealing her fate for everyone to see. In that single, blinding moment, Lily Carter's life veered off its tracks, hurtling her toward a future she never asked for, and a man who would soon turn her world upside down. The next evening, the small bell above the glass door of Beanhaven Coffee Shop jingled softly as the last customers filtered out into the night. Lily wiped the counter with quick strokes, her chest still tight from the chaos of the gala. Her phone buzzed on the shelf. Another message from the hospital about Evan's treatment costs. She shoved it back, swallowing a lump in her throat. The bell jingled again. She glanced up, expecting another late-night customer. Instead, Ryan Westbrook stepped inside, the glow from the street lamps outlining his tall figure. His black coat dripped from the rain outside, and his piercing eyes locked onto hers without hesitation. Lily's heart skipped. Her fingers clenched around the rag. "You?" she snapped. "What do you want now?" He didn't bother with pleasantries. He strode across the shop, polished shoes striking the wooden floor, and stopped a few feet away. His voice was low, clipped, each word cutting like glass. "Marry me. Sign the papers. I'll pay every cent for Evan's treatment. Refuse, and your brother has no chance." The words hit like a punch. Lily froze, then shook her head violently. "What kind of monster are you?" Her voice cracked, anger and panic colliding. "You can't—" Ryan pulled a folder from inside his coat and placed it on the counter with a cold slap. A contract. "This is not a request," he said, his jaw tight. "The board is already buzzing about last night. My grandfather expects this wedding. I'll make sure Evan's hospital bills vanish. But only if you agree." Lily's breath caught. Her hand trembled as she opened the folder, eyes scanning the legal pages she barely understood. At the bottom, a line waited for her signature like a trap. She looked up at him, her voice shaking. "So that's your game? Blackmail?" Ryan's expression didn't soften. "Think what you want. But you know I have the power to do this." The rag fell from Lily's hand. Fury surged through her chest, burning away her fear. "You arrogant—" Before she could stop herself, her palm lashed out, striking his cheek with a sharp crack that echoed through the empty cafe. Ryan didn't flinch. A red mark bloomed on his skin, but his eyes stayed locked on hers, unblinking, cold as winter. Tears stung Lily's eyes, blurring the page before her. Her throat ached as she whispered, half to herself, I can't lose Evan." She snatched the pen from the counter, gripping it so hard her knuckles turned white. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking clock on the wall. Her signature scrawled across the bottom of the page, every stroke a piece of her pride torn away. When she finished, she shoved the pen back at him, her voice breaking but laced with fire. "Fine, I'll marry you. But listen carefully, Ryan Westbrook." Her eyes glistened with tears, yet her words were steel. "You will regret ever forcing me into this. I swear, you'll regret it." Ryan took the contract, sliding it back into his coat without a flicker of emotion. He turned toward the door, pausing only long enough to meet her glare, with a shadow of something unreadable in his eyes. Then he left, the bell above the door chiming softly as if mocking the storm he had just unleashed. Lily sank onto a stool, shoulders shaking, fists pressed to her forehead. Rage, fear, a surge of helplessness. She thought of Evan's smile, of the nights she'd promised him a better future. And now she was chained to the very man she despised. Outside, the rain poured harder, streaking the windows with silver trails. Inside, Lily's whispered vow lingered in the empty shop. "You'll regret it. I promise you will." The wedding came like a whirlwind, lavish, dazzling, and utterly hollow. Lily Carter stood at the altar of a cathedral-like hall, draped in white silk, cameras flashing from every angle. She wore a designer gown flown in from New York, pearls catching the light as if she belonged to this world of wealth. But her eyes stayed fixed on the floor, her hands clenched tight around a bouquet. Beside her, Ryan Westbrook recited vows in a flat tone, his face a perfect mask. The crowd cheered when the priest announced them husband and wife. But Lily felt nothing but the weight of invisible chains. Hours later, the Bentley carried her through iron gates into the Westbrook estate, a sprawling mansion on a hill, every window glowing like ice. Crystal chandeliers glimmered in the grand foyer, polished floors stretched out endlessly, but the air was frigid, lifeless. Ryan led her inside, his steps echoing in the silence. He turned to her, his voice clipped and final. "The second floor is yours. Don't go into my private wing. Don't touch anything that isn't yours. We keep appearances for my grandfather, nothing more." Lily stared at him, her chest tight, then gave a bitter laugh. "Don't worry, Mr. Westbrook, I wouldn't dream of touching your perfect life." He didn't answer. He simply walked away, leaving her in the cavernous hall with her old canvas bag dangling from her shoulder. That night, when the mansion fell quiet, Lily wandered through unfamiliar corridors. Her footsteps barely made a sound on the marble floors, but every echo reminded her she was an outsider. She found the kitchen, gleaming with steel appliances, and made herself a small bowl of soup, humming softly under her breath, an old tune her mother used to sing. The melody trembled in the empty air, a fragile piece of home in a place that felt like a cage. Days blurred together. Ryan left early and returned late, his schedule as precise as his demeanor. They barely spoke, only exchanging curt nods at breakfast or dinner. She ate alone more often than not, her place at the long dining table feeling absurdly small. One afternoon, after pacing the halls for hours, Lily stepped outside into the backyard. There, behind the mansion's polished exterior, she discovered a forgotten garden, overgrown hedges, tangled weeds, wildflowers fighting to survive. The sight struck her unexpectedly, a mirror of her own life. She dropped to her knees, tearing at the weeds with her bare hands, working until her fingernails were caked with dirt. The rhythm of weeding, watering, pruning calmed her racing heart. Every evening after that, she returned to the garden. When her hands ached, she wiped sweat from her brow and whispered to the stubborn blooms, "You're still here. So am I." Her voice cracked, but she smiled anyway. From the second-floor balcony, Ryan sometimes paused on his way to his private wing. He stood behind the glass, watching the small figure bent over the soil, her hair loose, her face lit by the last streaks of sunlight. Something flickered in his chest, a faint, unwelcome tug. But when Lily straightened and glanced toward the mansion, Ryan stepped back into the shadows. His jaw tightened. He wouldn't let her see. He couldn't. He reminded himself this marriage was nothing but an arrangement, a transaction sealed with ink and pride. Yet night after night, he found himself lingering near the window, catching faint echoes of her voice as she hummed softly in the dark. For the first time in years, Ryan Westbrook felt something crack through the armor he'd built, and it terrified him. Down below, Lily dug her fingers into the earth and whispered a vow to herself, stronger this time. "I will not break in this place. Not for him. Not for anyone." And somewhere in that cold, silent mansion, two hearts so far apart began to stir in ways neither of them expected. 3 months passed, and the Westbrook name glittered across every headline as the family hosted another extravagant gala in a glass-walled ballroom downtown. Music thundered, crystal chandeliers glowed like 1,000 stars, and servers moved quickly between tables, balancing trays of wine and cocktails. Lily Carter stood quietly near the long bar, fingers curled around a thin stem of a champagne flute. Her emerald dress shimmered under the lights, but she kept to herself, a shadow among diamonds. She had learned to endure these events, smile faintly, exchange small talk with strangers, and pretend she belonged. Inside, though, she felt hollow. From across the room, Ryan Westbrook commanded attention with his perfect posture and that cold smile he wore like armor. He moved effortlessly among investors and old friends, shaking hands, laughing softly. Lily watched him for a moment, her heart tight. For weeks, she had tended the garden, cooked her own meals, and existed in his mansion like a ghost. She told herself she didn't care what he thought of her. She told herself she was strong enough. But then, his voice cut through the hum of conversation. "Ryan." A tall man in a gray suit chuckled, clinking his glass against Ryan's. "So how's married life? I still can't believe you let your grandfather pick your bride. That little waitress, isn't she?" Lily froze. Her back stiffened as she angled herself toward their table, without meaning to. Ryan's smirk was sharp, cruel, a blade wrapped in velvet. "You think I wanted this?" he said in a low, confident tone. "She's nothing, just a little show to keep my grandfather happy, a distraction. That's all." Lily's breath caught, a tremor rushing through her chest. The man laughed louder. "So she means nothing?" Ryan raised his glass and said the words that shattered her. "She's just a joke, a prop. Nothing more." For a second, time seemed to freeze. The music dulled, the lights blurred, and all Lily could hear was the echo of his words ripping through her. Her fingers went numb. The champagne flute slipped from her hand and hit the polished floor with a sharp, shattering crack. Heads turned. A few gasps rose from nearby guests as golden liquid spread across the marble. Lily didn't apologize. She didn't even look at the shards. She stared straight ahead, eyes stinging, heart pounding like a war drum. And then she turned. Her heels clicked fast against the floor as she pushed through the crowd. Someone called her name, but she didn't stop. The chandelier light streaked in her tear-blurred vision. Voices turned into meaningless noise. Every step felt like ripping open a wound she'd tried so hard to close. She shoved the heavy double doors open and stepped into the cold night air. The city lights spun in her eyes, the wind cutting through her dress. She gasped, not from the chill, but from the ache swelling in her chest. Behind her, laughter and music carried on, oblivious to the woman who had just been shattered in front of them. Lily clutched the railing at the edge of the balcony, knuckles white, breaths uneven. A joke. Nothing more? She whispered to herself, voice breaking. But she didn't cry there, not in front of that glittering crowd. Instead, she spun on her heel, lifted her head high despite the tears threatening to fall, and strode away into the night. Inside the hall, Ryan turned toward the sound of broken glass, his smile faltering for the first time. He scanned the crowd, searching for her, but Lily was already gone, leaving only the echo of shattered glass and a man who didn't yet realize the damage he'd done. And as she disappeared into the dark streets, one thought seared through her mind, burning brighter than the city lights. She would never forget those words, and she would never forgive him. The mansion was silent that night, except for the steady rhythm of rain drumming against the tall windows. Lily Carter sat at her small writing desk on the second floor, the dim light of a single lamp flickering across her face. Her emerald gown from the gala lay crumpled on the floor, soaked at the hem from her hurried escape. She stared at the blank page in front of her, hands trembling, heart still raw from Ryan's words, echoing in her mind. She's just a joke, nothing more. Her chest tightened as she thought of Evan's smile, of the promise she had made to herself to stay strong no matter what. But staying here, living in this cold palace with a man who saw her as nothing, was killing pieces of her she couldn't afford to lose. She gripped the pen and began to write, the words spilling out fast, shaky, but determined. "I will not be a burden to you. Goodbye." The pen clattered to the desk. She folded the note and placed it where he would see it, right on the nightstand. Then she zipped her old canvas bag, the same one she had carried through years of hard work, and slung it over her shoulder. The hallway creaked under her hurried steps. She paused once at the top of the staircase, taking one last look at the grand foyer with its cold marble floor and towering chandelier. Then she pushed through the heavy door into the storm. Rain lashed at her face as she stepped onto the gravel drive, pulling her thin coat tighter around her shoulders. Inside the city, Ryan Westbrook was still at the gala, unaware of what he had unleashed. But something gnawed at him during the last hour of meaningless conversations. He replayed her expression when she left, the sound of the glass shattering. His chest tightened with an unfamiliar sensation, unease. Hours later, when he finally returned to the mansion, his coat dripping from the relentless rain, the emptiness hit him first. The house felt different, too still, too hollow. He climbed the stairs two at a time, his gut telling him something was wrong. He opened the door to her room. The sight made him freeze. The wardrobe was ajar, her few belongings gone. The bed was neatly made, untouched, and there, on the nightstand, lay a single, folded note. His hand shook as he unfolded it. "I will not be a burden to you. Goodbye." The words blurred as his breath caught. The paper trembled in his grip. His chest burned, a mix of panic and anger rising fast. "No," he whispered, voice rough. "No, Lily." He spun around, striding out of the room, down the stairs, his shoes striking the marble like gunshots. He didn't bother with an umbrella. He stormed through the front door, straight into the sheets of cold rain. The Bentley roared to life as he slammed the door shut, hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Tires screeched on the wet pavement as he sped through the empty streets, eyes scanning every shadow. He turned corner after corner, wipers struggling against the downpour, heart hammering in his chest. The city lights blurred, streaks of red and gold against the black night. "Where are you, Lily?" he muttered, voice shaking. He checked the bus stop near the hospital, the quiet side streets, the bridge where she sometimes stood to look at the river. Nothing. Each empty place tightened the knot in his chest. Rainwater slid down his face, mixing with sweat, but he didn't slow down. For the first time in his life, Ryan Westbrook felt fear. Not the fear of losing deals or power, but the fear of losing the one person who had somehow cracked his frozen heart. He pressed the accelerator harder, refusing to give up, his mind replaying the last time he'd seen her, the pain in her eyes. And in that storm-soaked night, the powerful man who once thought he had everything realized he might have just lost the only thing that truly mattered. 2 days after that stormy night, Ryan Westbrook's Bentley pulled into a tiny gas station on the edge of a small, Midwestern town. His face was pale from lack of sleep, his clothes wrinkled. He had driven through the night, stopping at every bus terminal, every back road, desperate for one sign of her. And then, in the early morning light, he saw it, a hand-painted sign that read Mama's Diner, home cooking, and warm hearts. Something in his chest clenched. He pushed the door open. The bell above it gave a cheerful jingle that felt at odds with the pounding of his heart. Inside, the diner smelled of fresh coffee and buttered toast. A few locals sat scattered at tables, chatting softly. And then he saw her, Lily Carter, in a plain apron, head bowed, wiping down a corner booth. For a moment he couldn't breathe. She looked thinner, paler, but her movements were steady, determined. He stepped forward, but his voice caught. His heart screamed for her, yet his pride shattered like glass. He dropped to his knees right there on the old linoleum floor, not caring who watched. Heads turned, forks clinked against plates. Lily froze, the rag still in her hand, staring at him in disbelief. Ryan's voice cracked, raw and unguarded. "Lily, I was wrong about everything. I was blind and cruel. Please, give me one more chance." The diner went silent, except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Lily blinked, her lips parting, but no words came at first. Then her shoulders straightened, and the fire returned to her eyes. "Get up." Her voice was cold, steady. He hesitated. She stepped closer, her hands trembling slightly, but her tone like steel. "Go back to your world, Ryan. You don't belong here, and I don't belong to you." He felt those words like a punch to the gut. But he didn't rise, not immediately. He lowered his head, swallowing the ache that burned in his chest. She turned away, walking back toward the kitchen without another glance. Ryan stood slowly, his jaw tight, but there was no anger now, only resolve. He left the diner that morning, but he did not leave town. The next day, when Lily stepped out back to take the trash to the dumpster, she saw him again, Ryan Westbrook, the man who had once lived in a mansion, now standing behind the diner with sleeves rolled up, hauling crates of produce from a delivery truck. Sweat streaked his forehead, his once polished shoes scuffed by the gravel. "Why are you here?" she demanded, setting the trash down. He didn't look up, just grunted, "You need help." That afternoon, he scrubbed dishes until his hands reddened. The next morning, he showed up early to sweep the sidewalk. When the pharmacist closed late one night, and Lily needed fever medicine, she found a small bag waiting at her door. No note, just the medicine, and a receipt folded neatly. Days turned into weeks. Locals whispered in surprise at the tall stranger who worked quietly in the diner every day. He never spoke much, never complained. He carried boxes, fixed a broken chair, even helped an elderly man to his car in the pouring rain. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Lily stood in her small backyard behind the tiny house she had rented. She knelt in the dirt, trying to replant a bed of flowers she had started from seed. She brushed away sweat and sighed, too tired to continue. A shadow fell across the grass, Ryan stood there, holding a bag of soil and a tray of seedlings. He knelt beside her without a word and began digging. She stared at him, conflicted, but said nothing. They worked side by side in silence, hands muddy, breaths heavy. Then came Jack Mason, the tall mechanic with kind eyes and a familiar smile. He arrived carrying a basket of peaches from his farm. "Lily," he said softly, "you don't need anyone who hurt you. Stay here. Start over." Ryan froze, every muscle in his body tense, but he didn't speak. He simply set another flower into the earth, pressing the soil gently around its roots. Lily glanced at him, searching his face, and for the first time she saw no arrogance, no mockery, just a man stripped bare, fighting quietly for her forgiveness. Her heart ached with confusion. Anger still simmered, but something else stirred beneath it. Ryan kept working, his hands dirty, his voice low as he finally whispered, without looking up, "I'm not leaving. Not until I prove I'm not the man I was." Lily turned away, blinking back tears she refused to let him see. But deep inside, she felt the first crack in the walls she'd built around her heart. And as the sun set over that small town, Ryan stayed by her side, planting hope one seed at a time. Months later, the Grand Royal Hotel gleamed under the night sky once again. The same chandelier-lit ballroom, the same glittering crowd. But this time the air felt different, charged, alive. Guests mingled, unaware that history was about to repeat itself, but in a way no one expected. Backstage, Ryan Westbrook stood tall in a tailored black suit, his heart racing faster than it ever had in any boardroom. He wasn't the same man who once mocked the woman who had saved his life without even knowing it. He had spent weeks in that small town, hands blistered from work, heart raw from change, and he had refused to give up. Tonight, he was done hiding. Lily Carter, in a soft green dress she had chosen herself, stood near the back of the room, unaware of what was coming. Her eyes scanned the crowd, calm but curious, her posture strong. She hadn't come here expecting anything more than another charity event. Then the lights dimmed slightly, and the host announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, our main sponsor has a few words." Ryan stepped onto the stage. His polished shoes clicked against the floor, but his hands trembled ever so slightly as he took the microphone. The room hushed. Spotlights caught his face, and for a moment his deep blue eyes searched the crowd until they found her. Lily, standing still, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Ryan drew a steady breath. His voice, usually cold and controlled, broke with emotion as it echoed through the hall. "Months ago, I stood here a fool. I hurt someone who deserved none of my cruelty. I was blind, selfish, and too proud to see what was right in front of me." The crowd murmured, surprised, leaning in. Ryan continued, his gaze locked on Lily, his words steady now, every syllable heavy with meaning. "Lily Carter, you are not a burden. You are not a joke. You are the only thing that has ever made me want to be better than I am. Tonight, I am not speaking as a Westbrook. I am speaking as a man who finally understands what love means." Gasps rippled through the audience as Ryan reached into his pocket. Slowly, he dropped to one knee under the blinding lights. He held out a small velvet box, opened it, revealing a simple yet stunning diamond ring, one he had chosen, not inherited. His voice cracked, but he didn't care. "Lily, will you marry me? Not for a family name, not for a deal, but because my heart belongs to you." For a heartbeat, the room seemed frozen. Lily's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. The memories of that cold mansion, the garden he helped revive, the nights he brought her medicine in silence, all of it rushed through her like a flood. She set her glass down on the nearest table and moved forward, each step quickening until she was standing before him. Her tears spilled freely now, and her voice shook, but it was filled with certainty. Yes, Ryan, I will." The crowd erupted in applause, phones flashing, voices cheering. Ryan rose, slipping the ring onto her finger as if it had always belonged there. He pulled her into his arms as the room roared, and for the first time, the world around them disappeared. Weeks later, their real wedding was nothing like the grand halls of Chicago. It was in the backyard of Lily's small hometown house. Wildflowers bloomed in every corner of the garden they had nurtured together. Evan sat nearby, healthy and grinning from ear to ear. Jack Mason stood at the edge, holding a bouquet of daisies and smiling softly, in quiet blessing. Ryan wore no tie, just a white shirt rolled to his elbows. He brewed coffee for Lily that morning in the tiny kitchen, then helped her arrange tables outside. When she laughed, he laughed with her. When the vows were spoken under the open sky, there were no flashing cameras, only the sound of birds and the warmth of family and friends. And as the sun dipped low, Ryan and Lily sat on the porch steps, hands intertwined, watching Evan chase fireflies across the yard. Ryan brushed a loose strand of hair from Lily's face and whispered, "Thank you for giving me another chance." Lily rested her head on his shoulder, her heart full. "Thank you for finding me again." In that simple moment, surrounded by the life they had built, they both knew this was the love they had fought for, and it was worth everything. In life, people will sometimes hurt you, not always out of cruelty, but often out of ignorance, pride, or fear. One of the most important lessons we can take from this story is that true change is proven through consistent action, not just words. Ryan's journey shows us that when someone truly regrets their mistakes, they will show it through humility, effort, and sacrifice. And Lily's strength reminds us that we never have to stay where we are not valued, even if walking away is painful. For all of us, especially those navigating challenges in relationships, careers, or family life, this story is a powerful reminder. You deserve respect, and you have the right to demand it. Healing takes time, but people can grow if they are willing to fight for what matters. What about you? Have you ever given someone a second chance? Or walked away for good? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk about it. And if you want more meaningful stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe and join our community today.